What up, guys? Today we are talking about climbing the mountain of music production. So if you're watching this video, you're interested in computer music. You even maybe think about, getting a career in music production. But right now you see the mountain of knowledge you have to acquire in order to live out your dream, and it seems impossible to get to the level of your production superheroes. So I'm here today to help you build a mental strategy on how you're going to acquire all of these skills and knowledge. I always find it very cruel and unfair when people in forums and in YouTube comments tell beginner producers, well, you have to understand everything there is to know about sound design to really make it in this industry and blah, blah, blah. When in fact, most of the pros don't even do that. In reality, what these guys do is just like everybody else. They stick in front of the computer for 12 hours a day, and a lot of the days they come up with nothing, no original ideas or no good synth sounds or whatever they're doing. So if you're passionate about music, you're going to be willing to stick with me during this talk and understand all of the different things you have to do in order to be successful, and be patient enough to go through the different steps I'm going to show you today. So in order to climb the mountain of music production, you're going to have to understand the skill sets you need. And you're going to have to understand where you reside on these different scales in terms of abilities. And you're going to have to be able to set goals for yourself of where you want to be in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, so that this unreachable goal that you've set for yourself, which is a career in music production, will then become very reachable and very easy to manage. That way, you're going to be able to progress at a steady rhythm all throughout the years without getting discouraged. So before looking at the 2 skill sets you're going to need to climb the mountain, I want to talk about 2 things that I mention in every one of my tutorials. And these things are the foundation of your music talent. The first one is a knowledge of music theory, and that has nothing to do with computers. I'm sorry, but music theory, chords, melodies, harmonizing, voicing, all of that good stuff, you need to understand a little if you're going to make it into computer music. And the second one is basic DAW understanding. So you're gonna have to pick a software that's gonna allow you to put your musical ideas on the canvas, and in this case it's a computer screen. Now, acquiring these 2 pieces of vital information is gonna take you many years. So before diving into the main survival skill sets to climb the mountain, I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important music theory and being comfortable around a computer and a DAW is. Now let's look at the 2 skill sets you're gonna need. The first one is songwriting, and it's tightly linked to music theory. Songwriting is the ability to come up with chord progressions that evoke certain emotions, melodies that either make you want to jump and party or sob and cry. This is by far the most important skill set. But most of the talk today is going to be about the second skill set, which is sound design. Because at the end of the day, there's only a finite number of chord progressions that you can come up with. The difference is in the textures and the sounds that you use to convey these chord progressions and melodies. And because of the super fast growth of computer tools such as VSTs and virtual synthesizers and stuff like that, people get caught up in the whole technological aspect of music making when they really should focus on the songwriting aspect. And because there's so many tutorials nowadays on YouTube telling you how to program a Skrillex growl or an Avicii lead, people, and especially beginners, forget about understanding that these synth sounds are gonna take you only so far without proper musical training. So I want to describe the 4 basic steps in the sound design ladder. At the very bottom, the beginners are what I'm going to call preset users. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people who want to brush their egos online will tell you, well, presets are no good, you're cheating if you're making beats with presets, and so on and so forth. When in reality, everybody started out with presets, So there is nothing wrong with making beats with presets, okay? Mark my words, nothing wrong with presets. Once you get more comfortable with your songwriting and you've mastered, a little bit of music theory, then you can start to tweak presets, which is the second category, okay? So if you're a preset tweaker, you start out with presets writing your music, and once you get a good idea going, then you can start to turn the knobs and add effects and modulate the sounds a little bit differently to make them more unique and your own. And at the end of the day, most of your production heroes, people who chart and play on the radio every day, are probably just either preset users or preset tweakers. So don't get it twisted. Being a preset user is fine. And if you want to just be a little bit more original, once you're comfortable, start tweaking presets. Then there's the third category, which are, beginner sound designers. In the EDM world, where a lot relies on synth programming, you're going to have production superstars that are much more able to program their own sounds. Again, though, if you look at some of the biggest names in dubstep or electro house, these guys surely program some of their sounds, but they also use presets, and some of their own unique sounds are actually just presets that they tweaked a little bit differently. And also a lot of these guys exchange presets, massive, these preset files are so tiny that you can literally get thousands of presets in a second online or from a USB key that one of your DJ friends gave you. So understand that these guys get their sounds from somewhere too. Here's my big disclaimer. None of us out there only sound design all of our sounds. It's just impossible. They have so much to do in terms of composing, networking, DJing, performing, whatever, that you have to cut somewhere. And that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, is you have to know where you reside. If you're comfortable with sound design, well, maybe you need to improve your songwriting, and vice versa. So a little bit of a recap: understand music theory, then go on to understand computer tools such as DAWs, VSTs, and a couple plugins maybe to help your mix, such as EQing and compression. Then start creating arrangements with presets. Once you get comfortable and you have a few good beats, start tweaking these presets. And finally, once you're comfortable making good sounding beats with presets or tweaked presets, then you can start really getting deeper in synthesis and understanding how to program synthesizers. So understanding where you reside on these two different scales is very much like in video games, where you have to boost either your endurance or your power or your speed or your accuracy. And if you look at the best producers out there, they all have a certain mixture of these two skill sets. If you look at the Hollywood composing scene, people like John Williams might be in the 100th percentile, if that's even possible, in terms of songwriting. But if you look at 98% of his scores, he pretty much always uses the presets, which are unaltered versions of the orchestral instruments. And on the other hand, you have people like Hans Zimmer, who compose fairly simple music, but are so good at sound designing that they get most of the contracts right now on the biggest blockbusters. If you look at hip-hop, people who chart right now, people like What Mike Will Made It or DJ Mustard, they are preset users. And their compositions are fairly simple, but the way that they put together and the particular presets that they pick make them very original, and their sound therefore is very sought after. And then if you look at the EDM world, where some of those superstars are very good preset tweakers, people such as Skrillex, Diplo, Deadmau5, then you have people who write music that would be on the same level, you know, as Mike Will, and maybe a bit more advanced than the hip-hop world, and then a bit more advanced too in terms of synthesis, but they are not, you know, pure sound designers, and they're certainly not writing music that is on par with, you know, people like John Williams, for example. And then finally, the last group in the sound design ladder are the preset makers. So I kind of had this eureka moment once when I read this interview with Martin Garrix, and he said, you know, you should check out, you know, Vandalism. They're creating insane silent presets, and by the way, I use such and such presets for my Animals song. And that's really when I realized that, you know, the biggest superstars, they use presets too. They just use fancier presets. They might not be, you know, the stock Ableton Live or Fruity Loops or Logic presets, but they still use presets, and then they tweak them to make them unique. So don't get it twisted. You're not cooler if you know, sound design some super complex sounds but make shitty music, and the other way around, if you write crazy music but use only stock presets, you know. There has to be balance in all of these things. So understanding your place in this sound design ecosystem will help you be comfortable with who you are and what you're good at. And only then can you dive deeper in, you know, sound design and synthesis and synth programming. So once you're ready for that, the way to do it is to pick a weapon of choice. You will not become great at programming 10 software synths. So pick one that you like, either for the workflow, the look, the sound, whatever it is. I myself love Serum because of the workflow and the way it's super simple to see what you're actually modulating. A lot of people actually love Massive because it's so, you know, you can literally modulate everything in there. And a lot of people are using it. So because of the big user base, there are already a lot of presets available for you to look at, tweak, understand how they work. Just like everything else in music, you have to learn from the pros. So I advise that you get one of those software synthesizer, really try to focus and hone in on this one particular soft synth, and then start looking at tutorials and buy fancier preset banks and analyze these presets to understand how they make it and what you can learn from those. Once you master, you know, the sound generation concepts, you know, the oscillators, and then the filters, and then the modulators, you can start creating your own patches and incorporate those in your beats. And only then should you start to worry about, you know, the more technical aspects of computer music, such as mixing and mastering. A lot of the times people will get super deep into sound design, mixing and mastering, and they're going to be super worried about these technical aspects when their songwriting is shit. So hone in on your songwriting skills and then learn to climb the sound design ladder, and only then should you worry about the final stages like mixing and mastering. So my last bit of advice for you today is focus on music theory, songwriting, and only then should you worry about how you're going to climb the sound design ladder and ultimately how you're going to make it to the top of the music production mountain. So thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel on YouTube to watch my other videos. If you have, you know, questions or comments, you know, feel free to let it all out below. And have a great day and a great weekend. All right, peace.